Star Wars only. I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
It may surprise you to hear that Star Wars is not the most influential film of all time. Wizard of Oz actually is, according to researchers now. Over at the University of Turin, I believe is how you say it. It's in Italy, so correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I am sorry, I do not speak Italian. Researchers studied 47,000 films listed on IMDb, and they did what they call an influence score. And the researchers explain it right here. The score was based on how much each film has been referenced by subsequent films. The authors found that the top 20 most influential films were all produced before 1980 and mostly in the United States. I think that's right. I'm going to end the quote right there. I think that's something great for America in terms of our impact on culture and society, that the top 20 most influential films were all produced before 1980 and mostly in the United States. I think that's a great feature for United States. That's great. So the researchers go on to say, we have developed an algorithm that uses references between movies as a measure for success, and which can also be used to evaluate the career of directors, actors, and actresses by considering their preparation in top-scoring movies. And they found that The Wizard of Oz, for instance, has been referenced nearly 3,000 times in other movies and TV shows. Yahoo reported including the use of movie's iconic song, Over the Rainbow, and Dorothy's famous line, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. And then they go on to say it's also been remade many times, from The Wiz in 1978 to Tom and Jerry version in 2011. I remember seeing The Wiz in 1978. Well, I wasn't alive in 1978, but I remember seeing that version of it. I wasn't a big fan of it, though. The original Wizard of Oz is great, though, I'm not going to lie. So basically, Star Wars is not the most influential film of all time anymore. It's top 3, it's a number 2. It's 1 is The Wizard of Oz, number 2 is Star Wars, number 3 is Psycho, number 4 is King Kong 1933, and number 5 is 2001: A Space Odyssey. These numbers, or these lists, don't really surprise me at all. But what does surprise me is the Star Wars one, because for a long time we've always argued that Star Wars is the most influential film of all time. At least I've argued it. I know damn well I've said it on the channel many times. Now, I'm not going to sit here and deny science, though. Obviously, the research is correct, and what they're showing here is Wizard of Oz is the most influential film of all time. And that's fine with Star Wars being number 2. It does hurt as a Star Wars fan, but I can't deny the research. Could there come a day where someone comes out with a debunk of it and better research and prove that Star Wars is better? Sure, and if that happens, then I'll be like, yes, Star Wars is the most influential film of all time. The only thing I would say on this research that I would think maybe could sway it more in Star Wars' direction is that they didn't really include special effects, in my opinion. You look at what Star Wars had an impact with the special effects department. ILM that George Lucas created, that had a huge impact on movies like Jurassic Park and all those other movies that came out after that. Stuff like that with ILM was very influential. I'm not sure if that gets referenced in these films and on IMDb. I'm not sure if it does, because it's the special effect department and not the directors, not the writers, and not the story. So that's something I would also argue. And then you also have the toy industry, the toy empire that Star Wars built. Is George Lucas was a genius. I mean, people literally bought empty boxes of nothing with a promise of a toy being shipped to you eventually, because they couldn't produce them, because the demand for the toys were so high they couldn't supply them enough. So I don't know. I feel like Star Wars had a big influence on the toy market, of course, on the film, and also special effects and everything, and our culture itself. But I mean, the proof's in the pudding. Look at the research. Wizard of Oz number 1, Star Wars number 2. That's not a bad thing at all. All that shows to me is that we Americans can come up with some good stories and some great culture, and I really wish we can go back to those days. I've always been an old soul. I grew up watching the original trilogy. Even as the prequel trilogy came out, I grew up listening to 80s music. My favorite artist of all time is Billy Joel. My favorite band of all time is Queen. So I love stuff from the older eras, and I think this is proof that some of the stuff back then had a little more art to it. I wish we can go back to that, and so I really hope Star Wars can recapture that magic that it had, and I hope we get more films like that and The Wizard of Oz. But you tell me, which one do you think is more influential? Do you disagree with the research, or do you agree? I have to say, I'm skeptical, but I can't deny the facts right here, and that Wizard of Oz is number 1. So obviously Wizard of Oz is number 1. There might be argument for Star Wars, but hey, who am I to say no?